Hey guys, welcome back to Starcastic Remarks. My name is Ryan Chambers, and I am one of the hosts of Starcastic Remarks. Welcome to Star's Fan Stories, episode 12. Before we get in today's guest, we have two sponsors today. The first one is DraftKings Sportsbook. Please go and use that promo code THPN. Next time you are there, we appreciate them being our sponsor of this podcast, of this episode, and of all of THPN. We really do appreciate them. The second sponsor in today's episode is Irresponsibility, brought to you by Ryan. So, before I introduce Sam here, for those of you who can see him on screen, I have to say this because I was completely irresponsible. We are recording this starting at 10:45 because I am a Dumbo, and we originally scheduled it for 9:30, and I thought we were doing it next Monday because I put it wrong on my phone. So, first off, Sam, I apologize. And second off, welcome to the show.
Well, it's an honor to be on, and hey, it's all good, man. No worries, man. But I'm thrilled to be on the best Dallas Stars podcast there is. So I'm pretty pumped.
Wow, I appreciate that. I appreciate the sentiment there. We've had a lot of guests come on this show, and I do appreciate what you said there. Can you tell me just a little bit about yourself? Non hockey related stuff. As I understand, you're currently living in Arizona, getting a degree.
Yes, yeah. So at the moment right now, I'm home for the summer. So I'm back here in Dallas, which is nice. But I spend most of my time now attending Arizona State University. Go Sun Devils, Forks up. But I'm actually majoring in sports journalism, which is super fun. We got the Cronkite School out there, which is a great journalism school. So it's really fun stuff going on there, and it's really cool to to really talk about sports and get to know people who just it's sports talk 24/7, which is awesome. So I'm loving college so far.
So, what made you decide to get into sports journalism? Because it's a pretty dog eat dog world out there when it comes to sports journalism.
Oh yeah, you got that right. But like I've always been such a just big sports fan. It's been such a huge part of my life. Just really my whole life. Just it's been all about sports, watching sports. So I knew from an early age I wasn't gonna be the I wasn't gonna be the first line center scoring a goal in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. I wasn't gonna be doing that. But I always wanted to specifically go into the broadcast journalism world. So that was I always loved listening to the announcers. Doc Emmerich, of course, and with the Stars, guys like Ralph Strangis, Strader, and Bogorod now. So that's what I want to go into, and it's really just the love of sports itself. Just wanting to be connected to all sorts of sports throughout my life.
So you're attending Arizona State University, like you mentioned. We'll get into why that's significant here in a second. And for those
Oh
who
yeah.
who are diehard hockey fans, you understand what I'm talking about. But before we get into that, can you tell me what made you decide to go? I mean, that's halfway across the country to the West Coast, going to Arizona State, and you're from the Dallas area. So what made you decide to go to Arizona State?
Okay, well, first off, I want to go to Arizona State because I just wanted to see the best hockey team in the world, the Coyotes, obviously. No. Um, I want to go to ASU because, I mean, really, the journalism school there, it's amazing. I mean, it's one of the best in the nation. And believe me, it was tough. It was tough leaving home because, if there was like a great, just, I mean, there are some good journalism schools here in the state of Texas. I know UT, UNT, those schools have really good ones, but ASU, I just kept on hearing how it's on a whole other level, and I was just like, I want to go after my dream, and I think I got to go do it in the desert, and I always just liked ASU. It seems like a fun place to go to school, and it is. There's a lot of people know about ASU as a kind of reputation, I guess, as a big party school. I don't really do the party stuff, but it's a really fun school. Great people there. I do like the dry heat, so it's nice there in Arizona. I quite like it.
Hey, I can totally relate to the dry heat being out in the middle of nowhere, West Texas. So
Oh
and
yeah.
I definitely agree with you. Like every time I go between where I live currently here in just south of Odessa, compared to the Dallas area, I constantly like look at or my wife actually tells me about the weather, and like here, if it's 106, it's 106. Okay.
Oh
But
yeah.
like in Dallas, if it's 106, it actually feels like, 112 because of the humidity out there. So I totally get that 100%. And you kind of mentioned it just slightly there at the beginning. I'll just go ahead and say this as a disclaimer for those that don't know. There is a NHL hockey team who is in transition between arenas. Well, we hope to get an arena in Tempe. I hope they stay there. I really hope they do. But while they're waiting to get the improvement, the building, the funds, all of that stuff for the arena, and I'm talking about the Arizona Coyotes of the NHL, they're going to be playing on the campus of Arizona State University where the Sun Devils play. It's a brand new arena, and they're going to be there for probably about 3 years max, it seems like. So that's a really cool experience, especially for you, Sam. And I know that everyone's like, oh, it's not a real NHL franchise, and how dare this is a joke on the NHL and stuff like that. But for you, it's going to be a really interesting experience, and I'm kind of envious of the fact that you're going to be able to do that because I mean, this is not like a huge giant arena. It's like probably a fourth or a fifth of the size of a normal NHL arena. Like for those that don't understand, American Airlines seats about 20,000, between 19 and 20,000. This arena that the Coyotes will be playing out of this upcoming season sits about 4 to 5,000, if I understand correctly. So are you excited to maybe get an opportunity to watch Arizona in that arena?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think it's going to be a really interesting and intimate atmosphere. I think it's going to be really cool, and I think they're going to be able to bring in a lot of interest from the ASU students, from the college crowd. I think they're going to be interested in going to see games. So I'm really excited to see how what it's like and whatnot. Actually, it's funny. I got to go to a couple games actually last season in Glendale at Gila River, and that is a very nice arena. I really enjoyed the times there that I got to have because it's actually pretty underrated in my opinion in terms of NHL arenas, but the atmosphere that they're going to have in Tempe, I think it's going to be really cool, and I think like there's not going to be a bad seat in the building, so I think especially for those big teams when guys like McDavid and stuff and the Oilers and the Avalanche come, it's going to be a pretty big ticket. So I'm really excited to see what it's like. And obviously, hopefully, I'll be able to go see the Stars play there, which I think would be super fun.
Now, I haven't looked at the schedule yet, but since the Coyotes are in the Central Division, technically, there's a possibility you could see them actually more than once in Arizona, which is kind of nice because you're going to be at school at the same time the hockey season is going on. So, I'm really excited for you because I've honestly thought about maybe flying out to Tempe sometime just to go watch any Coyotes game just to see what the atmosphere is like. And let me ask you this question, and maybe you can answer this because I think that especially the Phoenix area gets a lot of hate, if that makes any sense, especially right now from not necessarily like the Phoenix Suns and stuff like that and the Arizona Cardinals and stuff, but especially from the NHL standpoint because they're like, oh well, they just need to move to Quebec, or oh, they need to move to Houston, which I would love, by the way. But I mean, there are a lot of fans in Arizona. So can you talk about maybe like the atmosphere with hockey in Arizona, and tell me why that it's good that the Arizona Coyotes are staying? I know that's kind of putting you on the spot and everything, but can you tell me just a little bit about the culture there?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about the Coyotes fan base is that they've been playing in Glendale, and really when most of the hockey fans are actually they're on the other side, of the metropolitan area, that most of the actual big Coyotes fan base, it's not in Glendale. And Glendale, it's not the easiest to get to. It takes a while. It's not like the Coyotes play in the Suns arena. Which I think would be, I mean, that would be big for the Coyotes because they used to play in the Suns arena, but now it's just the Suns there. So so I think that this move, I think it's really going to grow the fan base, but I think it's also going to be easier just for the existing fans to be able to go to games, much more easily. But the Coyotes, I would say they don't have a big fan base, but they have a dedicated fan base. When I go to those games, I see, I would go to like, I think I went to somewhere around like 5 games last season there in Glendale, and I saw like a lot of the same people there. I felt like, so I think that while they don't have a big fan base, it's a devoted fan base, and they really stick by their team.
And I kind of relate to that because the Stars are very similar to that. The
Yeah.
Stars, they don't have a bunch of what I would call hardcore, crazy fans like me. Like I'm stupid insane when it comes to the Stars. So, but they have a lot of people who are really, really dedicated, who are season ticket holders, who have been season ticket holders for a very long time. And they have a lot of casual hockey fans who go out and see, a couple of games a year. So I would imagine that something like that is very similar to the Dallas situation. And I mean, I know the Stars are a lot more financially sound right now than the Arizona Coyotes, but I would hate to see my team leave. So I'm very happy that they're staying in Arizona. Being totally honest, I'm glad they are. So
Yeah, me too. Me too.
um, before I get into like hockey related stuff, do you have anybody like maybe family you would like to shout out and say hi to or anything like that?
Yeah, of course. Okay. So first off, got to shout out my mom. Even though she's a Blackhawks fan, which we have some, yeah, we have some differences on that front, but I love her so much. So shout out to my mom. Shout out to my good friend Ben Slotnick. He's a even though he's a fan of the Lightning, which is
Yeah, it's
but
better than Chicago.
yeah, exactly. So shout out to my man Ben. I met him at freshman year at ASU. Great guy. Shout out to my man Connor Zodi, even though he's a LA Kings fan. So I have a lot of friends who are just big into hockey. And then also shout out to Grant Snuggs, who was a friend I had in elementary school. We were huge Stars fans. We really bonded over that. Then my boys, the Eagers, shout out to them. So yeah, just shout out all my friends, shout out to my great family and stuff. So, in case they're watching, in case they're going to be listening. So,
Oh, I should totally listen to you. They should totally listen. You got a lot of cool stories to tell. So, and I want to get into one specific story because I think it's really interesting that you did this. And it's actually, if you go to Sam's Twitter feed, he's got it up at the top of his page. I think you have it pinned if I remember correctly. You might not anymore, but Sam does a lot of stuff very similar to some podcasting stuff as well. And you actually got to interview someone really, really interesting. Can you tell people who that was about?
yes. So I was able to interview Dallas Stars fans' favorite announcer of all time, Leah Hextall, which was really fun. And I know that she might not have the biggest fan base, at least here in the Stars fan base, but she's such a sweet person. She's awesome. She was so fun to talk to. I got to talk to her just about her experiences and stuff, really getting into the business of broadcasting. So she's really cool. I'm really a big fan of her. I know as a person, and I think that over time she's really gonna start improving in the booth and stuff. Because it's not an easy job. It's not easy.
Well, and especially it's a national if it's a national audience, so you're trying to, talk to multiple different fan bases while while you're giving off information. And I'll be honest, I was on the hate train for a little while, but I wouldn't say she's grown on me quite yet. I think she will. But she's gotten better, especially over the course of the season. There were several ESPN Plus broadcasts that I was just like, okay, Leah, you are getting pretty good at this,
Yeah.
and I really do. I'm really starting to appreciate her more. So, and I also wanted to ask you about a certain announcer that you also got to interview as well, right? You got to interview the first Stars like PA announcer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I got to talk with Siri Zalison, and it's a really cool thing about her because she was the first announcer, obviously, in Stars history. She was the PA announcer for the first season back at Reunion Arena, and she was also the first ever PA announcer, female PA announcer in the history of the National Hockey League. And and that's something that I had no idea about. I didn't know who she was really up until just a couple months ago, and I found out about it on like YouTube. I thought it was so cool, so I reached out to her, got to talk to her, and she got to, it was really cool. She got to kind of tell me her story about really getting involved with the Stars and her experiences doing the announcing, and it was so cool to talk to her. Like she's awesome, and she was a real pioneer, and it's really cool that the Stars, we're in on this stuff way back in the early '90s, which is really cool.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because I never knew that she was the first female PA announcer in the history of the NHL. I thought that was really cool, and I thought that was a really cool experience for you to get to do that. And if you want to go listen to that, that's on. Is that on your Twitter feed? I think they could find it somewhere on your Twitter feed.
Yeah. Those stuff, it'll be on my Twitter feed. I got some clips up there, and then if you look up C Trace Sports, it should come up there.
Okay, so go check those out because both of those interviews were really cool. I watched both of them; they were neat.
Oh well,
So,
thank you so much, Ryan. I
good job.
appreciate that,
No,
man.
you
I
did a great job
appreciate
with
that.
it. Okay, so anyways, let's get into more specifically about you, and you've done some cool stuff, but let's talk about why hockey, why the Dallas Stars, and your background into getting into hockey and how it got it started with the greatest team in North American sports.
Yes, of course. Okay. So it's kind of a long story. So I became a big Stars fan, or mostly just a hockey fan through the NHL video games, because I would play those so much as a kid. All the old NHL EA Sports games, and I always liked to play as the Stars. So I got to know all the old players through that. Guys like Turco, Morrow, whose jersey I have on right now. Lettinen, Felipe Boucher, Valeri Bure. So I got to know all the old guys through those video games. So of course I became interested in watching the sport. Now my mom, like I said earlier, she's a Blackhawks fan. So she really got me into watching the game. This was when the Blackhawks were winning cups in 2010, 2013, 2015. So I kind of got my interest in watching hockey through her, through watching the Blackhawks. But I got interested in the Stars specifically when I really became a big Stars fan, was when it was just a surprise, thing that I got to go to. My parents surprised me, and I got to go see it was, I believe, Game 4 of the 2014 first round series between the Ducks and the Stars. I got to see Game 4, and we won that game, and it was such an amazing atmosphere. I loved it so much. I fell in love with the Victory Green jerseys. Jamie Benn he became my favorite player that night and gosh, that game was so much fun. Just it was a playoff game, amazing atmosphere. So yeah, it was that game that really made me a fan, and then I've just been following the team ever since.
So, over the course of your life, how many games would you say you've gone to per year? It doesn't have to be an exact. You just give me like an estimate.
Okay, so I would say I usually try to make it out to maybe like 2-3 games a year. I would say that at least it's
A little harder for you now, probably. I would assume, right?
yeah, it is. It is a bit tougher, but it was nice because as soon as I came back from Arizona, we were playing the Flames in the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
so I was able to go to Game 6, which ended up being our last win of the season, and it was a very fun night. Even though we did lose the series, it was an awesome night. I'm never gonna forget. And the craziest thing about that night was after the game, I ran into Kari Lettinen after the game, and I got to meet
Wow.
Kari. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. I recognized him. I was like, wait, that's Kari. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was really fun night. Really cool.
Did you get to take a picture with him or anything like that? Get his
Yes. Yeah.
autograph?
Oh yeah. I made sure to get a photo with him. He's the nicest guy. He's such a cool guy.
That's legit. That's awesome. I'm glad that happened to you because, uh, especially, I mean, it's very hard to find a hockey player that's not super personable, in my opinion. That's why
Yeah.
I love this sport so much because most of the guys in it are very humble, down to earth, and they'll do anything for a fan. So that's one of the reasons why I love hockey. So What was your favorite thing about the atmosphere at the American Airlines Center? Whether it was the game you went to in 2014, the game 6 against the Ducks, or whether it was another game or whatever. What's like your favorite thing about being there and being part of the crowd?
Well, that's actually a really good question. I would say I loved just how invested the fans are in the game, because I go to some other games, I'll go to some other arenas, and I feel like that some crowds can be kind of quiet at times. It's like they're not fully into it, sometimes. It's funny. Over spring break, I went to Florida, and I actually got to see a Lightning game, and they were playing the Red Wings. But I was really expecting like the atmosphere to be like, whoa, like this is the back-to-back champs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I bet the atmosphere is going to be great. The atmosphere was really good, but I was like thinking about it. I was like, man, like I don't think it. I still didn't think that it was as good as the Stars. Like there's something special about that atmosphere in Dallas. When you're there, you feel like you really feel like that you're in just a great group of people who are invested in the game. They're very loud, passionate, and stuff. And I love all the extra things that happen, like saying like I guess the traditions, I guess saying stars during the anthem, the Pantera goal song, the best goal song in the NHL, just all the little things. I believe it's the Garth Brooks sing along now. So that's cool. I've really grown to like that. So I love all just the different things that happen at Stars games.
And I would also like to point out to Colorado Avalanche fans that we started the whole Blink 182, all the small things first.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
So,
exactly.
so anybody clip this if you're listening to this or watching on YouTube or whatever, clip it, put it on YouTube or wherever, and you can quote me on this. We started it first before Colorado. Colorado, it's not your thing; it's our thing first.
100%, I agree
So,
with that.
that's cool, man. Very, very cool. Let me ask you about some of your favorite players over the course of the last. It could be like from I guess you could say the era before, maybe when Sagan and Ben were younger, or current players, or even players way, way, way back in the past, maybe in the '90s that you've maybe read up on or something. Can you tell me some of your favorite players?
Yeah, so definitely one of my favorite players is Brett Hull. I mean, he scored the biggest goal in the history of the franchise. He's one of the greatest goal scorers in the history of the game. And every time I watch the replay of that goal, it gets me in it. And even though I wasn't alive at the time, I was born a couple years after that. Honestly, I mean, it stays with me. I feel like I watched it live. Like that's how much I've watched it over the years. So definitely Brett, and obviously Morrow, because Morrow was really the first Stars player that I really knew of a lot, just through the video games and stuff. So he was the first player that I really was into, even though I wasn't watching a whole lot of Stars hockey at that time. And over the years I've gotten to learn more about him. Obviously, he has that iconic Game 6 goal against the Sharks, the 4 overtime game, which is an amazing moment. But he's also just a great leader. Great leadership on and off the ice. Just a great captain. And then I would say, I guess from more of the current era, Jamie Benn. I love Jamie, man. He's been one of my favorite players ever since I really started watching the Stars. Same with Morrow. I would say that Ben is a great leader. I think he really is. I think he can be underrated in that aspect of his great leadership and how he leads the team. I think he's a great guy. And then, and unfortunately, I'm going to talk about a guy who might be leaving us pretty soon, but Klinger. I love Klinger, man. That Game 6 goal against the Predators was one of the best moments of my life. I was so happy when he scored that. I love him. He's a Swede, man. He's so clutch for us, and it's looking like more than likely he's going to be leaving. So I'm really going to miss Klingberg. And also just one of the best last names that the Stars have ever had.
Speaking of last names, that the Stars have had, one of my favorites, and there have been two that they're both JJ. That's their initials. Jussi Jokinen and Jyrki Jokipaka. I
Yes.
love those names. It's just, And Yurki Yoki Paka used to be one of my favorite players back in the day when he was still here.
Yeah,
I,
man, dude, Yoki Pocket, man,
I don't
I
even know
love
where
him,
he is
man.
now. I don't even
I
know
don't
where
know
he
what
is
he's
now.
doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
but yeah, I remember when he was on here, man. I love that guy, man. He was one of my favorites too.
yep. Well, let me ask you about some of your favorite Dallas Stars moments because you kind of mentioned a couple. You mentioned Klingberg Game 6, 2019 against the Nashville Predators, and that was kind of a surprise because that was when Nashville was at the top of their game. They were slowly starting to decline from there. You kind of mentioned 2014. I would assume that's one of your favorite moments because you got to go to that playoff game,
Oh yeah,
Game 6, and then you were also able to go to the Flames series this past playoff run,
yeah.
in Game 6 as well, which we won, which was Otter stood on his head. My goodness.
Oh my gosh,
But
yeah.
can you tell me some of your other favorite moments that kind of stick out to you? And it could literally be anything. It could be, it didn't have to be like a specific game or anything like that. Just something off the ice that you saw. It could be anything.
Right. Okay. So one of my favorite memories ever. This was the last game of the 2014-15 season. We're playing the Nashville Predators, and it was when Jamie Benn won the Art Ross Trophy. I was lucky enough to be there in person, and when he got that second assist on the I believe it was a Cody Eakin goal, and the whole place erupted, and then they put the graphic on the jumbotron that he had won the Art Ross. We were just going nuts. It was so awesome. The season as a whole, it wasn't the best. We missed out on the playoffs, but that moment was so awesome. It was so cool to see him, have that moment. And then after the game, it was so cool. Jamie was doing an interview with the ticket. This was like out on just like the concourse, and there's like a bunch of we're all just like we're all just kind of there to see him. It was really cool because he actually signed autographs for all of us, like all the fans there. So I got his autograph like after the game. Jamie's such a cool, nice guy, and I was like, wow, like I got to meet Jamie like right after he won the Art Ross, which is pretty dang cool. So that's one of my favorite memories, getting to be there. Um, let's see, another one of my favorite memories. Just the 2020 run as a whole, really. Just like as a whole, it's just so many memories within that. But the memory that sticks out to me most, it's actually from the Flame series from 2020. This was it was Game 4, I believe. Yeah, Game 4. And just for some context, I was going through a very tough time in my life. I'm not going to go into like a ton of details, but it was, I was going through a tough time, and there was some, so it's like the tough time, it had started really right as the playoffs started, right as the round robin had ended pretty much. So, I was like, okay, I'm going through this tough time. Hopefully the Stars can really, lift me up. But then it's looking like we're going to go down 3-1. I was like, oh, crap. We're going to go down 3-1. We're probably going to lose. I was like, oh, man, I was feeling defeated. But then Pavelski scores this goal to tie the game up, send it into overtime, and I cried. I cried when Pavelski scored that. I'm going to remember that moment forever because, I was so happy. I just like when I needed the most, the Stars the Stars scored, and then we won that game. We won the series, and then we went on just one of the greatest runs of all time. And that run, it really helped me, during a time, that was very tough, dealing with some heartbreak. But it was just such a memorable run, so many amazing memories. I would have friends over, like my good friend Roy. Shout out to my boy Roy. Had him over for Game 5 against Tampa, and we were going nuts when Perry scored. That's one of my favorite memories. And I remember thinking when Perry scored that goal, I was like, okay, Stars in 7, we're gonna do it. I was so confident. And even though we lost, it's that run is one of the greatest runs I've ever seen. It was just so improbable. It felt like a Hollywood movie, and it was amazing. So definitely just that whole run, really, as a whole, I would say, just so many great memories within that.
Man, there's so many things I want to. All those things are cool. There are so many thoughts running through my head when he said that. But random useless trivia fact for the night: do you know who Jamie Benn beat? for the Art Ross Trophy? I'm putting you on the spot again.
I believe it was Tavares.
Very good.
And
Okay.
then I believe in third it was like Crosby, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
Very
yeah.
good. Yeah. And they were tied with like 2 minutes left in the Stars game. John Tavares had already finished his last game, and he had the lead because he had more goals than Tavares or than Ben had, and all he needed was just 1 point. He got the 1 point. I think it was 87 is what he ended up getting. 87 or 88, one of the two. But and I've talked about this with several of the Fan Stories episodes, but that 2020 bubble run, I think it helped a lot of people in the Dallas area. And I mean, like you said, you were going through a rough personal part of your life, which props to you for sharing on a podcast like this. That's really brave to do so. But just in general, I've talked to a lot of Stars fans who, just because of the pandemic and the uncertainty of everything that's been going on, everything that was going on. I hope it's all done now, but all the uncertainty that was going on, that was something that we could look forward to. I mean, just getting to see hockey, at least, without fans, but still get to watch it on TV. And, it is like the whole world shut down. There was nothing to look forward to for months. And then the Stars go into a bubble. They're there by themselves. They don't get to be with their families, and they pull off one of the most amazing runs in sports history, in my opinion. We're going to look back on this run, even though we didn't win. We're going to look back on that run, 50 years from now and say, I remember when Joe Pavelski scored that goal. I remember when John Klingberg scored that goal. I remember when Yoel freaking Kiviranta, but they didn't say freaking, scored his hat trick goal. A guy no one had ever heard of before. Colorado never knew who this guy was, and he scored a hat trick in the most important game of the season. I mean, you can't get anything like that back. And I think it also jump-started a brand new generation of hockey fans here in the Dallas area. I say here in the Dallas area, like I'm in the Dallas area, but in Texas, it definitely spawned. Even here in Odessa, I've talked to several kids who I know who are like, they're starting to become hockey fans just because of that 2020 bubble run. So, I don't know what else to say about it. It was just absolutely fantastic, and I'm glad you're a part of that. So, last big question, but there's probably little questions coming off of this too. At the time we're recording this, it is July 18th of 2022. And and I've said this for the past couple of interviews, is that this is after free agent signing. So we know at this point that the Stars have signed Mason Marchment, looks to be a pretty good signing, and also Colin Miller. And Colin Miller looks to be a pretty solid, second or third pairing defenseman. But what's really interesting is this is the 6th day of free agency, and John Klingberg still does not have a new team.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask you about is how do you feel about the Stars situation going into the next season, knowing all of this stuff? So are you, I think I've said, are you cautiously optimistic? Are you really optimistic and you're really excited about next season? Or are you just completely down and depressed? Do you think this team is going to suck it up and they're going to tank for Connor Bedard? What do you think?
Okay. So I mean, every year, of course, every year, I always think the same thing. I want to see the Stars win the Stanley Cup. That is always the hope. Now, if I'm being realistic, that is most likely not going to happen this next season. Although Peter DeBoer, he whenever he goes to the Stanley Cup, it's always within like his first season. So, I don't know, maybe it'll continue here. But I would say I'm cautiously optimistic for how the season is going to go. I do think I'm excited to see what DeBoer does with this team. I want to see like some more offense. I am super excited for Mason Marchment. I am stoked with that signing. I was watching the podcast that you guys were doing, and when you said that we had just got Marchment, I jumped up, I jumped up from out of my bed. I was like, holy cow. I was so excited. And I think, I really like his game. I like his physicality. He can put up points. So I'm really excited to see how he does. I'm going to be, he's probably the guy I'm going to be watching the most. And then I'm also excited to obviously, just see Ottinger play more, especially after what he did in that Calgary series, which was just,
Stupid.
out of this world.
Stupid.
Yeah, it was stupid good. Yeah. And then,
and we saw the 2020 bubble run that Hudobin had, and it's hard for me to say, even though we just talked about the 2020 bubble run, but that one series performance by Jake Ottinger was probably one of the greatest I've ever seen in my lifetime. By
yeah,
not just a Stars goaltender, but any goaltender, period. The only one that I think that would trump it is J.S. Jaguar when the Anaheim Ducks lost in the Stanley Cup final, because he was out of his mind and they still lost. But sorry, continue. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, no, it's funny, just to talk a little quick thing about Ottinger. I had a couple of friends over, for that game 7, and these friends of mine, they don't really watch a lot of hockey, they don't watch the Stars a lot, but they were just in awe. They were in awe of what Ottinger was doing. I mean, I have friends texting me who don't really watch the Stars, and they're like, we're watching this game and this guy Ottinger is just out of his mind. Like, everyone was hitting me up about it. I was like, I know, right? This is amazing. It was just like honestly, I started to think that just Calgary just wasn't going to score. I like it was.
I really thought that Ottinger was gonna will his way
Yeah.
to make sure. Like, I honestly thought that he was at one point gonna drop his goalie gear, take his goalie stick, go down, deke everybody out, and score himself, because he was just doing everything except scoring. So, but
yeah, but that was just that was incredible. So I mean, to go off of that, like I said, I'm excited to see what Ottinger does. I'm really excited to also watch Miro too, because I'm hoping that possibly, we can see Miro really take that next step and possibly get to the level of Cale Makar. I think that's what many Stars fans want to see, because I mean, Miro is fantastic. He's amazing. But man, if he can get up to just maybe take that one extra step and get to where probably Makar is, oh my goodness. Like, if he unlocks just that little extra in his game, oh my goodness. That could be amazing. And he's already amazing. So, I'm really excited to see what the Stars do. I'm excited for the Ryan Suter redemption arc. No, that's not going to happen. But hopefully, I mean, we can dream. So, but I'm cautiously optimistic. So,
let me ask you this, because you talked about Klingberg a little bit. Like I mentioned, this is the 6th day of free agency. The dude is still not signed, as far as I'm aware of, and I feel like that if he was signed, I would have heard about it by now. And I mean, as close an eye as I keep to Twitter every day, just watching for any kind of hockey news in general, I'm honestly shocked, and I think he and his agent are too. The longer this goes on, and don't take my word for it, but I think the longer this goes on, the more of a chance that he may return to the Dallas Stars.
Yeah.
Now, this is complete speculation. This is not like I have insider information or anything like that. But, if he had a contract that he liked and a team that was at least competitive, I think he would have already signed somewhere. I really do. So, do you think that John Klingberg can have his redemption arc and come back to the Dallas Stars and be a defenseman for them again?
Well, I hope so, because like I said earlier, Klingberg, and I know that Klingberg he does get a fair amount of hate, from the fan base, but
Likewise too.
yeah,
Sorry, John, I love you. Sorry,
yeah,
but I still do appreciate you.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll admit it was funny, because I was sitting up, in the stands for that game 6 against Calgary, and every time Klingberg made a turnover, just I could hear everyone in my section just loudly groan. And I'll admit, and I'm sitting there in my Klingberg jersey. I'm just like, oh gosh,
I wore the wrong jersey.
Yeah, I know. Well, like at least we won. At least we won. But but yeah, I hope that if he could come back, that if he can't come back, he he would. I would really like to see what Klingberg can do under DeBoer, and I really think that Klingberg could really do well under DeBoer, and I really think that he could have a much better season than last year if he comes back. I'm not going to bet on that. I'm not going to bet on him coming back, but I would love if he did, because I think he could really do well for us next season.
I have my answer, but I want to hear what you think. If you had to give it a percentage of a chance that he comes back, what would you put it at?
Okay. Good question. Well, like you said,
It's
the
a hard
longer
one.
it goes, you're right. I do think that the longer it goes, I still, the chances increase, but as of now, again, I still don't see him coming back. So I would say maybe like 25, 30%, and I'm probably being decently generous even then. But what are your thoughts?
I'm right there close to you. I put about 20%. So you're a little bit more
Yeah.
optimistic than I am about it, but I mean, it's still there. I mean, if they can trade out, uh, specifically two players, everyone's talking about it. Trade out Foxa, trade out Dobby, don't retain any kind of salary whatsoever. Then maybe there's a chance he returns. Maybe, but it's still very unlikely at this point. And the Stars
Yeah.
have even come out and said, Klingberg's not coming back. So I mean, never say never. Yeah, but I just don't think it's going to happen. So I don't know how invested you are in like top six forwards, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on who you think. I mean, the first line's kind of solidified. We can all talk about the first line of forwards and it being Pavelski, Robertson, and Hintz. But who do you? And we don't have to talk about all the lines, but who do you think could play on that second line with presumably Sagan as that second line center? Who do you think could play with him?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm pretty sure Marchman has to be up there. I mean, there's a reason we signed him. We signed him to be a top six forward. So I say definitely Marchman has to be up there. And I mean, I really, and again, like I said, I think Marchman's going to turn out fantastic for us. I think he's going to turn out to be a really good signing. I think he's going to, and I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, how it's oh, well, there's a chance that maybe he's just a 1-year wonder, with Florida, and it's like, he, and I mean, I think people are definitely right to have those concerns. Don't get me wrong, but I really do think that Marchman is going to play well for us. And then someone who I really like, I like Peterson a lot. I would like to see Peterson get a shot up there. I think that's what I'd really like to see, because I really like his game. So.
And I agree with you. I mean, you've listened to our show, and me specifically, I rave about Peterson. I mean, he's a 5th round pick, and the Stars have really good luck with 5th round picks. Look at Jamie Benn, look at John Klingberg. They're both 5th round picks. And he showed some flashes of some dangleness, if that makes any sense. He's got some puck moving skills. And the fact that he scored a limited, in limited ice time, he was double digits in goals, and he was scratched sometimes throughout the season. So, I mean, he could be an excellent top 6 forward, and I think he's going to be given the chance. I really do think he's going to be given the chance under DeBoer. So I agree with you 100%. And I also agree with you with the whole Mason Marchment thing, because when I wrote my article for Blackout Dallas and I said, hey, we should really look at this guy, I undervalued him probably now that I look back at it. On my article for Blackout, I think I put him at like 2.5, that maybe the Stars could get him for 2.5. He signed for almost double that at 4.5. So and I'm perfectly okay with this, because Jim Nell in the past, and you can tell me what you think, he hasn't really made like giant free agent acquisitions. He's made some big trades in the past before he liked where his team was at, and I like where my team is at. That's one of his famous slogans, right? I mean, we can talk about the Sagan trade, where we hosed Boston. We could talk about the Spezza trade, which I think was pretty even in the end. Patrick Sharp, same thing. I think we hosed the Blackhawks with that trade as well, with getting both Stephen Johns and Patrick Sharp. But it was nice for me to see Jim Nill go out there and make a really big free agent acquisition because, I mean, no offense to Ryan Suter. I love the guy. I know he gets a lot of hate from Stars fans. I personally love him, but he wasn't necessarily the big free agent acquisition that Stars fans were hoping for. So, I mean, what did you think about that move? What do you think that move signing Mason Marchment to a big contract like that says about Jim Nill?
Yeah, and listen, I really like what Noah's doing here, and I really I like that he's addressing a big need that this team has. This team has just they have had difficulty scoring. I mean that's been the big thing. They can't score enough goals, and we saw it in that Calgary series. That's what bit the Stars in the butt is that we couldn't score, and we couldn't provide for Otter. When he really needed us, when he just needed one more goal, we couldn't get it for him. So honestly, I think this is just a great signing by Nil. I love what he's doing here, and honestly, I'll be honest. I really feel like I'm not sure if it's going to be like just the playoffs or just whatever, but I got this feeling, man, that Marchment is going to end up getting like a really big goal for us in like the playoffs or something. If we do make it, I think Marchment is going to be like that guy who's going to, he's going to really, show up, and he's going to be like, hey, this is why you signed me, right? And he's going to get a big goal. I got a feeling about that, So I think Marchment's going to be awesome for us.
I do too. And we should. And I know a lot of Stars fans are really kind of upset at the fact that the Stars are not like perennial contender. The Tampa Bays. You could put Toronto up there. Colorado's of the world. Carolina, you could put up there as like the top contenders in the NHL. But you really have to look at the success that the Stars have had recently, the past 4 years. And the 1 year they missed the playoffs, I think it was a fluke just because of the injuries the Stars dealt with. So 2019, we lose to the Stanley Cup champions. 2020, we lose to the Stanley Cup champions. 2021, we had all those injuries. Rope Hintz was playing on 1 foot, basically. Sagan played 6 games the entire year. There's our top 2 centers gone like that. And then this past year, if we had just gotten past Calgary, I think, man, it makes me think that we could have done some real damage.
Yeah.
Against Edmonton, against the LA Kings, whoever was going to go on, I thought we had the perfect opportunity to go straight to the Western Conference Final. Now, I'm not putting anything on us beating Colorado in the Western Conference Final. That's who I would assume we would have faced. But still that would have been a deep run, and I think Stars fans have just got to look at it like that. And we were 1 game away from defeating the Calgary Flames. We are, maybe not even a game away, seconds away. And I think Otter is going to be a big part of this team going forward. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. I agree with everything you said, man. I agree with everything you said. And it's like that's the thing. I feel like whenever the Stars they get into the playoffs, I always tell this to my friends. Don't count out the Stars, because I feel like if this team gets in the playoffs, they're always a threat to go on a run, and they always, even if they're playing a team that might have more talent than them, they always put up just such a great fight. And we saw that, just in this last playoffs. They gave Calgary a run for their money and almost knocked them off. So, I always think that if the Stars make the playoffs, they're always a threat to go on a run. So,
And one of our favorite segments, and it was Chris's favorite segment when we were doing the Calgary series from this past playoff run. We were going through the ESPN list and all the analysts, and everybody said Flames and such, Flames and such and such, Flames and such and such. I got it right. I said Flames in 7. Every other ESPN analyst had Flames in 4, 5, or 6. No one bet on the Stars to push it to 6 games or 7 games, excuse me. and he would, he'd say, I remember Chris saying, I think Leah Hextall actually was one of them. He's like, Leah Hextall, Flames in 5, you suck. You go to the next one, such and such. Greg Wyszynski, Flames in 4, you suck. Or he'd say something like screw you or something like that, and it was one of my favorite things that I looked forward to after every game, when the Stars kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. So I think we're better than we were last year. I really do. But
Yeah, me too.
we'll have to look and see and wait for next year. It feels a long way away, but it's going to be closer than we think. So we're about 2 months away now from uh, you know training camp from opening up. You got lots of storylines, the big young 3 prospects. You got all sorts of things coming up, so we're super excited. And I think, Sam, we're gonna cut it off here tonight, man. I just want to say thank you for joining us, and I just want to open up the floor to you. And I know you got some stuff you probably want to promote, because I know you got some stuff that you do and you spend a lot of time and energy into. So the floor is yours before we cut it off tonight.
Okay, well, first off, I just want to say, thank you so much for having me on. I love listening to you guys, so it's so cool that I got to be on this. It means a lot. Second off, just more shout outs. Shout out to the great people at Arizona State University, of course. And then I guess if I have something to promote, I'll promote a podcast that has nothing to do with sports. Tell it, if there's anyone listening who likes a Swedish 80s pop rock music, you can listen to my podcast called The Rocks Cast. Talks about the Swedish 80s band Roxette. And so in case there's anyone, any Roxette fans, they did perform in Dallas once back in the early 90s at Six Flags. So maybe if anyone attended that concert, come listen to my podcast.
Hey, I didn't even know you hosted that, man. That's cool. I may have to actually go and listen to that, because I don't even know what Swedish pop rock music sounds like. So I may have to go just to see what it's like. So, again, Sam, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate you coming on, and I do appreciate your kind words as well. Thank you. And once again, 2 sponsors, want to thank them. Thank you to DraftKings Sportsbook. Sponsor number 2, My Irresponsibility. They're great promoters of this show. Go and use the promo code THPN next time you're at DraftKings Sportsbook. Along with Sam, my name's Ryan. We'll catch you guys on the flip side, and we hope you guys have a good, fantastic evening, morning, whenever you're listening to this. Have a good evening.